The trade station Virex Dodd. 9 floated in the dark like a crown made of metal and light. Ships of every shape and size came and went through its glowing docking rings. To most travelers, it was just a busy stop between worlds. To Lothari, it was her whole life. Among her people, the Thryn, beauty, and status could be seen at a glance. Their tall bodies were covered in smooth, shell-like skin traced with lines of soft light. The brighter and clearer the glow, the higher the respect. Important Thryn shone in brilliant blues, violets, and golds that pulsed gently as they walked. Lothari did not shine like that. Her glow was faint and uneven, like light trying to shine through heavy clouds. No treatment had ever changed it. No special nutrients, no posture training, no meditation cycles. Since childhood, others had looked at her with polite disappointment. She was not ugly by the standards of other species, but among her own kind, she was forgettable. She worked in Docking Ring 7, one of the older and less glamorous sections of the station. Important guests arrived in the central rings, where the walls were polished to mirrors and the air smelled faintly of rare perfumes. Dock 7 smelled like engine coolant and heated metal. Cargo haulers and small independent ships docked there, the kind that did not bring diplomats or celebrities. Lothari did not complain. She had learned long ago that quiet acceptance made life smoother. She performed her tasks with care, logged arrivals, checked cargo declarations, and kept her voice calm and respectful. No one praised her, but no one scolded her either. She existed in the safe middle ground of being useful but unremarkable. That middle ground was lonely. Other Thryn clerks often chatted in soft-color pulses while they worked, sharing social news or planning gatherings after shift cycles. Lothari's terminal was at the far end of the ring, near an observation window that looked out on open space. She liked that window. The stars did not judge her brightness. They just shone. On the cycle, everything changed. She was finishing a routine scan of an incoming freighter when a new alert chimed at her station. Unregistered independent vessel requesting dock access. Origin. Sol system. She blinked. Humans. She had read about them in station cultural briefings, newer to interstellar travel than most species on Virex. 9. Emotionally expressive, socially unpredictable, physically fragile compared to many galactic races, yet strangely resilient. She approved the docking request and assigned the ship to Bay 7A. Standard procedure. Through the wide docking window, she watched the vessel come in. It was small, with a patchwork hull that showed signs of repair, not military, not corporate, personal. The ship settled onto the magnetic clamps with a solid thud. Steam vented in short bursts. A moment later, the airlock light turned green. Lothari straightened her posture and moved to the intake line. Her glow dimmed slightly with nerves. First impressions mattered, even if she had learned not to expect much. The airlock door slid open with a hiss. A human stepped out, carrying a crate against his chest. He was shorter than she expected, with brown skin, dark hair tied loosely at the back, and fabric clothing in layered shades of gray and blue. No armor, no visible weapons, just a tired-looking jacket and boots that had seen many worlds. He paused just outside the airlock and looked around the docking bay with open curiosity, like someone entering a market for the first time instead of a major trade station. Then he saw her. His face changed immediately. His eyes brightened, and his mouth curved upward in what her briefing files identified as a friendly smile. "Hi," he said, voice warm and a little breathless from carrying the crate. "Your station intake, right?" Lothari almost checked behind her to see who he was really talking to. No visitor ever sounded that pleased to see a Dock 7 clerk.
"Yes," she replied, keeping her tone professional.
"Clerk Lothari! Welcome to Virex 9. Please present cargo for scan and declare contents." "Sure thing." He shifted the crate onto a hovering cart and wiped his hands on his jacket. "I'm Owen." Independent trader. Well, part-time trader, part-time delivery guy, part-time help people who can't afford big shipping fees guy. She paused, unsure which category that fit in. Declared cargo? He tapped the crate. Assorted goods. Textiles, preserved food items, small tools. All legal. Promise. She extended a scanning tendril from her wrist and ran it over the crate. The scanner confirmed his list. No weapons. No contraband. Your declaration is accurate, she said. Docking clearance granted for 6 standard cycles. Please remain within approved trade sectors. Got it. He nodded, then tilted his head slightly as he looked at her. Not past her. At her. She felt the familiar tension in her core. That was usually the moment others politely looked away. Instead, he said, "This place is amazing. First time this far out for me. Virex, 9 processes over 4 million passengers per cycle," she recited. "It is considered economically efficient." He laughed softly. That is the most official way anyone's ever described amazing. She did not know how to respond to that. He kept smiling, not in mockery, but in easy amusement.
Hey, is your glow natural? The pattern, I mean.
Her internal systems tightened. There it was, the question that always came before awkward silence. Yes, she said quietly.
It is my natural bioluminescent pattern.
He stepped a little closer, peering with interest, not discomfort.
That's really cool.
It looks like a night sky right before a storm. Back home, we'd paint stuff to look like that. Her thoughts stumbled. You? Find it visually pleasing? Yeah, he said simply.
It's calm. Most of the others I passed were super bright.
But kinda intense. Yours is easier to look at.
Easier to look at.
No Thrin had ever described her that way. Usually they said nothing at all, which meant they preferred not to look.
I must continue processing other arrivals, she said, her voice slightly unsteady.
Welcome to the station, Trader Owen. Thanks, Clerk Lithari. He picked up the cart's guide handle, then paused. I'm glad you were the first person I met here. He said it like it mattered. Then he headed toward the inner corridor, humming a soft tune to himself. Lithari stood still, long after he disappeared into the flow of travelers. Her glow flickered without her meaning it to. She checked her reflection in a polished wall panel. The same dim lines. The same muted colors. But for the first time, she wondered what they looked like to someone who had never been taught they were lacking. The rest of her shift passed in a strange blur. She processed manifests incorrectly twice and had to correct them. Her focus kept drifting back to the human's words. Calm. Night sky. Glad you were the first person. They were small things. Meaningless, perhaps, to someone brighter and more confident. To Lithari, they echoed. The next cycle, she did not expect to see him again. Independent traders usually rushed their business and left as soon as possible, to save docking fees. Midway through her shift, a familiar voice spoke beside her terminal. Hi again, Clerk Lithari.
She turned so fast her tendrils almost tangled.
Trader Owen, you are still docked. Found a couple buyers for the food packs. Slow negotiators, though. He held up a small insulated container. Brought you something.
I cannot accept trade items while on duty, she said automatically. It's not trade. He opened the lid slightly, and warm steam curled out, carrying a sweet, spicy scent.
Tea. Human comfort drink. Cultural exchange. She hesitated. Station policy did allow minor cultural samples. She took the container carefully. The warmth spread through her hands. She sipped. The flavor was unlike any nutrient solution she had tried. Sweet, sharp, and soothing all at once. It is pleasant, she admitted. He beamed like she had given him an award. Knew you'd like it. No one had ever brought her something just because they thought she would enjoy it. Over the next few cycles, he kept coming back, sometimes with questions about the station, sometimes just to talk while she worked. He told her about Earth's oceans, about rain on metal rooftops, about crowded street markets full of noise and color. He asked about Thrin art, about how bioluminescence felt, about which stars she liked best from her window. No one had ever asked her what she liked best. She found herself watching the docking schedule, feeling a small lift in her chest whenever his ship ID appeared. Other clerks noticed. A few gave her curious glances. One asked gently why a human kept visiting Dock 7.
I do not know,
She said, but she hoped he would keep doing it. On his 6th visit, he carried a long bundle wrapped in deep blue fabric. For you, he said, a little shy this time.
Well, if that's okay, she stared.
Why? He rubbed the back of his neck. Back home, when we think someone deserves to feel special, we give them something nice to wear, not because of rank, just because of them. He unwrapped the bundle. Inside was a cloak, dark blue with tiny silver threads woven through it. The threads caught the docking lights and shimmered like distant stars.
I noticed you don't wear any decorative layers,
he said. Figured maybe you never found one you liked. She touched the fabric. Soft.
Light. Beautiful.
I am not high status, she said quietly. So? She had no answer for that. With careful hands, he draped the cloak over her shoulders. The silver threads reflected her faint glow, spreading it across the fabric so that it looked deliberate, elegant. Passing travelers slowed. A pair of Thrin merchants paused, their bright crests dimming in surprise. Lethari looked at her reflection again. She did not look like someone to overlook. She looked important. Owen smiled gently.
There. Now everyone else can see what I saw. Her voice trembled.
What did you see? He shrugged. Someone kind, someone patient, someone who made a nervous human feel welcome in a giant space station. That's worth something where I'm from. Kind, patient, worth something. Simple words, human words. They filled a space inside her that had been empty for a very long time. For the first time in her life, Lethari stood a little taller at her station in Docking Ring 7, wrapped in a star-threaded cloak, while ships came and went beneath the endless, judging-free light of distant suns. The cloak changed more than Lethari expected. At first, she thought the difference was only in how others looked at her. That alone would have been enough to make each work cycle feel strange. But the real change started inside her. She wore the dark blue cloak every shift after Owen gave it to her. The silver threads caught her soft glow and spread it outward, turning her dim light into something that looked deep instead of weak. She still worked at the same terminal in Docking Ring 7. She still scanned cargo, verified forms, and directed ships to their assigned bays. But now, when travelers approached her station, they paused, not in confusion, in respect. Some assumed she held a ceremonial role. Others thought she might be a cultural liaison. A few even bowed slightly, a gesture usually reserved for higher-ranking Thrin. The first time it happened, she nearly corrected them. The words, "I am only a cargo clerk," rose to her lips. But then she remembered Owen's confused expression. So she simply returned the gesture and helped them with their paperwork. Her supervisor, a tall Thrin named Sarathel, whose glow shone in bright, confident waves, called her in for a private discussion 3 cycles after the cloak appeared. Sarathel's office overlooked the inner docking rings, where luxury vessels docked in quiet elegance. Lethari felt out of place standing there, her reflection faint in the polished walls. "Clerk Lethari," Sarathel began, voice calm. There has been increased attention directed toward docking ring 7. Yes, Supervisor. Specifically toward you. Lithari lowered her gaze. If my performance has been unsatisfactory, it has not, Sarathel interrupted gently.
Your efficiency ratings have improved, in fact. Fewer processing delays.
Higher traveler satisfaction feedback. Lithari blinked.
Feedback? Several visitors have mentioned the kind Thryn in the star cloak. Her glow flickered in surprise. Sarathel studied the cloak draped over Lithari's shoulders. This garment. It is not traditional Thryn design.
It was a gift from a human trader.
A human, Sarathel repeated thoughtfully. We have received multiple informal reports about this individual.
He has been assisting other traders with loading issues and translating basic trade terms for newly arrived species. That is consistent with his behavior, Lithari said softly. Sarathel's crest shimmered with mild curiosity. It is unusual for an off-worlder to form repeated social contact with a single low-tier clerk. The old shame stirred, but did not settle as deeply as before.
You said I made him feel welcome,
Lithari replied. Sarathel was quiet for a long moment. Then perhaps docking ring 7 is providing a service we did not properly measure. Lithari did not fully understand what that meant, but she sensed she was not in trouble. That alone felt like a small miracle. When she returned to her station, Owen was already there, sitting cross-legged on a cargo crate and talking to a four-armed mechanic from a mining colony. They were laughing about something involving a broken food heater and a misunderstanding about extra spicy. Owen looked up and waved when he saw her, like it was the most natural thing in the galaxy to be happy she existed.
You look extra royal today, he said when she approached.
I met with my supervisor, she replied. He winced.
Uh-oh, am I in trouble? No, she said, and realized she was pleased to reassure him.
Your presence has increased positive feedback metrics.
He grinned. Yes.
Weaponized friendliness wins again. She still did not fully understand human humor, but she found herself making a soft clicking sound that was the Thryn equivalent of a laugh. As cycles passed, Owen became a familiar sight not just to Lithari, but to many in docking ring 7. He helped an elderly trader carry heavy containers. He showed a lost courier how to navigate the station maps. He once spent nearly an hour sitting beside a nervous young traveler from a low-gravity world, calmly explaining how artificial gravity worked until the traveler stopped shaking. He did these things without asking for payment. Lithari watched, confused at first. Among the Thryn, time was carefully allocated. Effort was spent where it would bring status, alliances, or measurable gain. Owen seemed to spend effort simply because someone needed it. One slow shift, she asked him, "Why do you assist strangers so often?" He leaned back against the wall, considering. "Because I've been the stranger before. A lot. And it sucks less when someone's nice. That is not strategically beneficial."
Maybe not, he said with a shrug.
But it makes places feel less cold. She looked around Dock 7. The old metal walls.
The echo of engines. The constant rush of beings too busy to notice one another.
It did feel less cold lately. The change became impossible to ignore during a minor systems outage. A power fluctuation hit docking ring 7, dimming lights and temporarily disabling automated cargo lifts. Delays piled up. Tempers started to rise among traders on tight schedules.
In the past, Lithari would have lowered her gaze and endured the frustration directed at her terminal.
This time, wrapped in her star-threaded cloak, she straightened her posture. "We are experiencing a temporary systems disruption," she announced clearly. "Manual processing is underway. I will prioritize perishable goods and medical shipments." Her voice carried farther than she expected. Several nearby workers looked toward her. Owen appeared at her side without being asked.
I can help move smaller loads, he said. Point me where you need muscle. She did.
Soon, a small group formed. 2 mechanics, a courier, and Owen. moving cargo by hand while Lethari coordinated from her station. She thanked each of them by name when she could. She kept her tone calm and steady. The delays did not vanish, but the anger did not grow the way it used to. At the end of the shift, one of the traders, a heavy-scaled being from a desert world, paused before leaving.
You kept things orderly, the trader rumbled.
Good leadership. Lethari almost looked behind her again. Thank you, she said instead. Leadership. No one had ever used that word for her. Later, in the quiet between ship arrivals, she turned to Owen. You assisted without being directed by station authority. He smiled.
You ass.
That's enough for me. I am not station authority.
He tilted his head. Felt like it to me. That simple statement stayed with her long after he left for the cycle. Words spread beyond Dock 7. Travelers who had positive experiences mentioned the calm Thryn in the starry cloak. Some deliberately requested docking in Ring 7, even when other bays were available sooner. Sarathel visited her station in person one cycle, observing silently as Lethari worked. Afterward, the supervisor made a quiet adjustment to staffing assignments. Dock 7 received an additional clerk, not to replace Lethari, to support her. You have become a stabilizing presence, Sarathel told her.
It would be inefficient not to acknowledge that. Inefficient. It was the most Thryn way possible to say you matter.
Meanwhile, Owen prepared to depart. Independent traders could not stay docked forever without losing money. When he told Lethari, a tight feeling formed in her chest cavity. How long will you be gone? She asked.
Couple months, maybe, he said. Got deliveries lined up along the outer routes? She nodded, trying to keep her glow steady.
Virex, 9 will continue operating in your absence. He laughed softly. I'm sure it will, Your Radiance. She had stopped correcting that. On his last day before departure, he handed her a small data chip.
It's got some human music, pictures of Earth's skies, and a couple recipes modified for Thryn biology. Figured you might like to try them. You continue to provide gifts, she said.
Yeah, he replied. That's kind of my thing. She hesitated, then said, Your presence has altered my life path in ways I am still calculating. He smiled, gentler than usual.
You did the same for me, you know. I only performed my assigned duties. You treated me like I wasn't a problem to process. That's not nothing.
She watched him walk toward the docks, carrying his worn travel bag. He turned once and waved. Her glow followed him down the corridor until he disappeared. Docking Ring 7 felt quieter after he left, but it did not feel empty the way it once had. Travelers still greeted her with respect. Workers still asked her opinion during minor issues. She still wore the cloak, its silver threads catching the light of passing ships. One cycle, a young Thryn trainee was assigned to her station for experience hours. The trainee's glow was uneven and faint. The trainee kept her gaze low, movements careful and small. Lethari recognized that posture. She had worn it for most of her life.
Stand beside me, Lethari said gently. You will assist with intake today. The trainee blinked in surprise but obeyed.
As they worked, Lethari explained procedures calmly. When the trainee made a small mistake, Lethari corrected it without sharpness. During a quiet moment, the trainee glanced at the cloak. Your garment is very beautiful, she said softly.
It was a gift, Lethari replied. You must be of high status to receive such an item.
Lethari looked out the viewport at the endless stars. No, she said. I was simply treated as if I was. The trainee considered that, her faint glow pulsing thoughtfully. Lethari returned to her console, posture straight, voice steady as she welcomed the next incoming ship. Somewhere beyond the trade routes, a small human vessel carried goods and stories from world to world.
And on Virex 9 in Docking Ring 7, a once-forgotten clerk continued to shine in her own quiet storm cloud way. Proof that sometimes being seen by one kind soul could change how the entire galaxy saw you.
By the time the trouble came to Virix, 9 Lethery had almost grown used to being seen, not in the loud, shining way of high caste Thrin, whose bioluminescence turned heads across a crowded hall. Her glow was still soft, still the color of distant storms, but now being stopped at her station because they trusted her. They asked her for directions, for clarification, sometimes just for reassurance when the station felt too big and too loud.
Docking Ring 7 had changed with her. It was still older than the central rings.
The walls still showed patches from old repairs. The air still carried the scent of fuel and metal. But the workers there had started greeting each other more. Traders shared updates about safe routes. A mechanic from a water world kept a small tank of floating plants near the loading bay, and no one complained about the extra humidity anymore. Small changes. Human-style changes. Lethery did not realize how much those changes mattered until the alert sirens began. It started as a low vibration through the deck plating, barely noticeable under the usual rumble of engines. Then the station lights shifted from soft white to warning amber. A calm, artificial voice echoed through the corridors. Security advisory. Unidentified vessel has exited fold space within restricted distance. All non-essential personnel proceed to nearest safe zone. Dock 7 fell silent. Lethery's tendrils froze above her console. Her mind raced through procedures. She had trained for emergencies, but real danger was rare on a major trade hub like Virex.
9. Its location and alliances usually kept pirates and raiders far away.
Through the wide viewport, she saw it. A dark, angular ship hanging against the stars, too close, its hull bristling with weapon ports. Around her, travelers began to panic. A small group of merchants argued loudly in overlapping languages. A courier dropped a crate, its contents scattering across the floor. "Please remain calm," Lethery said, raising her voice. It trembled at first. She forced it steady. "Proceed to shelter node 7-2. Follow the illuminated floor path."
Some obeyed immediately.
Others hesitated, looking for someone brighter, someone official-looking to lead them. Their eyes landed on the star-threaded cloak. Lethery swallowed her fear and stepped out from behind her terminal. "This way," she said, gesturing toward the corridor. A family of small, furred beings hurried after her. Then 2 traders, then more. The station shuddered. A distant boom echoed through the structure as defense systems activated. Inside, Lethery's thoughts raced. She was only a clerk. She was not security. Not command staff. But she was here. That had to be enough. She guided the group down the corridor, past closed shop fronts and flickering wall panels. Emergency lights painted everything in red and gold. At the shelter node entrance, a pair of station guards waved civilians inside. One guard, a broad-shouldered being in armored plating, paused when he saw Lethery.
"Ring 7 intake?" he asked.
"Yes," she replied. "Additional civilians may still be in the docking bay."
He nodded sharply. "We'll send a sweep team." She started to turn toward the shelter, but something pulled her gaze back down the corridor toward the docks. Owen's ship was still out there. He had returned 2 cycles ago, earlier than expected, with stories about a storm that had forced him to reroute. He had planned to stay only long enough to trade and restock. If he was still aboard when the alert sounded, her core tightened. Inside the shelter, civilians huddled on benches along the walls. A medic drone moved among them, scanning for injuries. The door began to close. Lethery stepped back. "Clerk!" one of the furred beings called.
"You are not coming? I must verify that Dock 7 is clear," she said. "That is not your duty," the being protested.
Maybe not, she thought, but it felt like her responsibility anyway. She turned and moved quickly back down the corridor, cloak trailing behind her like a line of night sky. The station shook again, harder this time. Dust drifted from the ceiling panels. Her comm unit crackled to life. Lathari? Please tell me that's you? Her glow flared in relief. Owen, state your location. Dock 7, Bay A. Trying to help a loader bot that glitched when the power flickered. Doors half jammed.
She changed direction immediately. Remain where you are. I am en route.
You are not security, he said. You're supposed to be in a shelter. You are not security, she replied. You are still in the docking bay. He laughed softly, even now. Fair point. When she reached the bay entrance, the inner blast door was halfway down, stuck at an angle. Sparks jumped from the control panel. She squeezed through the gap. The docking bay was chaos. Warning lights flashed. One cargo crane hung frozen mid-lift. A small service bot lay on its side, wheels twitching. Owen was crouched near the outer airlock, prying at a manual release lever. I swear, he muttered. Every sci-fi movie makes this look easier. Step aside, Lathari said, moving to the wall panel. This is the part where you reveal secret alien super strength, right? He asked, backing up. No, she said. This is the part where I read the emergency override instructions posted for staff. She used her access code to unlock the manual control. Together, they pulled the lever. The heavy inner door slid shut with a deep clang, just as another distant impact rocked the station. Owen let out a long breath.
Oh! That was louder than I liked. We must reach the shelter, she said.
Nodded. Then he looked at her more closely.
You came back for me. You were still listed as docked, she replied. That's not the same as...
He stopped, then smiled softly. Thank you. She felt warmth spread through her again, even with alarms blaring. They hurried through maintenance corridors to avoid crowded main halls. Along the way, they found 2 more station workers trying to move a heavy supply cart blocking a passage. Without hesitation, Owen grabbed one side.
Lift on 3.
Lathari took the other, adding her strength. Together, they shifted it enough for everyone to slip past. By the time they reached the shelter node, the doors were almost sealed. The guard from earlier saw them and waved urgently. Inside, now! They crossed the threshold just as the heavy door shut with a final, echoing boom. Inside, the air was tense but safe. The medic drone scanned Owen's arm where a small cut had opened. I am fine, he insisted.
Just met a wall a little too fast.
Lathari stood beside him, cloak dusty, glow flickering from stress and adrenaline. Several civilians looked at them with wide eyes. You went back out, one whispered. Lathari did not know how to explain that she simply could not leave someone behind. Owen solved it in his own way. She's the bravest person here, he said easily. Her glow brightened in embarrassment. Hours later, the all-clear signal finally sounded. The hostile ship had been driven off by station defenses and a patrol fleet responding to the distress call.
When the shelter doors opened, Docking Ring 7 was damaged but intact.
Crews moved through the area, checking structures and restoring power. Sarathal arrived in person, crest glowing with controlled urgency. She stopped when she saw Lathari and Owen together. Report, Sarathal said. Lathari explained calmly. Civilian evacuation. Return to bay, securing the jammed door, assisting others in the corridor. Sarathal listened without interruption. When she finished, the supervisor inclined her head. Your actions reduced potential casualties, Sarathal said. That is noted. Owen rubbed the back of his neck. She did most of it. I just lifted stuff and panicked quietly. Sarathel's gaze shifted to him. Your assistance is also recorded, human Owen. He blinked. Oh, cool.
As repair crews worked, More station personnel approached Lothari with thanks.
A mechanic she had helped months ago touched her shoulder in gratitude. A trader bowed deeply. She felt overwhelmed. Later, when the chaos had settled into tired relief, she stood by the viewport again with Owen. The stars looked the same as always. Calm. Distant.
I was afraid, she admitted quietly.
Me too, he said. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. Me too. It just means doing the thing anyway. Quote, when she considered that. All my life, she said slowly, I believed I was lesser.
Not suited for importance.
He leaned on the railing beside her.
Funny thing is, nobody who's actually important walks around announcing it.
They just show up when it counts. She looked down at her reflection in the glass. Dim glow, star-threaded cloak, posture no longer bent small. For the first time, she believed him. Around them, docking ring 7 buzzed with repair and recovery. It was still scarred, still imperfect, but it was full of beings helping one another. And in the middle of it stood a once overlooked clerk and a stubborn human, side by side, watching the stars like they had all the time in the universe.